All right, so I want to start off today's show with a preseason update around the New Orleans Saints. So as we all know, the Saints and the Houston Texans were scheduled to have a joint practice leading up to the preseason matchup in New Orleans this weekend. However, the teams have both decided to cancel joint practices ahead of that matchup. And why that's the case? The Texans are dealing with a lot of new injuries. They don't want to have to beat up their players more than they already have. Honestly, I get it. It's fine. I'm not that upset about it. Of course, you want to see some of your players get reps. You want to see some of these young guys take on, other players that aren't, the same team. But, the Saints were in that same position. I got to say, I'd probably want the same thing. Brett Kirschhofer over at NOF Network reports that both teams didn't think they'd have productive practices due to the massive amounts of injuries for the Texans. Saints are also dealing with some injuries as well. Practices were scheduled for August 24th and the 25th, and here is that statement from the Saints and the Texans. It is a joint statement. They both had, agreed on this. This is what they both said. Our two teams have mutually agreed to cancel the joint practices that were scheduled in New Orleans on Thursday, August 24th, and Friday, August 25th. After our head coaches spoke earlier today, we decided that it was in the best interest of both teams as we continue to prepare for the regular season. A revised practice schedule for each team will be communicated once finalized. Again, that's after Dennis Allen and DeMeco Ryans talked and had a conversation about it. So there you go. And guys, this is why you subscribe. We talk about any notable Saints news, updates, all sorts of fun, interactive content. We are at 16,537. Shout out to all 450 new subscribers we picked up in yesterday's watch party versus the Chargers. It was absolutely electric. It was a lot of fun. And guys, just as a programming reminder, we have another watch party this weekend against the Houston Texans. We will be live 30 minutes ahead of kickoff. I'm going to be coming in from a bachelor party. I'm going to go ahead and say it. I'm going to need to keep the drinks flowing to just make it through that show. So if you guys want to have some fun, if you want to have a good time and watch some Saints football with me, join us 30 minutes ahead of kickoff. Be sure to subscribe and turn on your notifications. All right. So death, taxes, penalties for the New Orleans Saints. There's three things in life that are inevitable, and it seems like those are the big three. So in terms of a penalty breakdown, good God, 13 total penalties, or 13 total players were penalized yesterday. So you had 10 penalties on the offense for 75 yards. One was declined. Woohoo. You had 4 penalties for 41 yards on the defense. One was also declined there. Woohoo. This special teams, you had 2 penalties for 25 yards for a grand total of 16 penalties and 141 yards. Clean it up. I mean, I don't know what else to say. The biggest thing about this is, of course, I know that the starters and a lot of the guys we're going to see playing most Sundays weren't playing yesterday against the Chargers. I get it. That's fine. However, you got players who are trying to battle for roster spots, and getting penalized, especially penalized multiple times, is not a way to make the roster. Cough, cough, at Brian Edwards, cough, cough. Figure it out. I mean, Dennis Allen, I will say, I'm going to give him some credit because he spoke on this during the post-game press conference, and here's what he said. I didn't like the penalties. Way too many. So that's something we've got to get cleaned up. Look, we won the game, and I'm pleased about that, but there is still a ton of crap that needs to get cleaned up. And again, 16 penalties, 141 yards. You damn near could have scored 10 points. I mean, you could have scored about 10 points on just the penalties alone. It's unbelievable. And I understand that I'm critical of DA. Y'all know, if you're a frequent watcher, I'm typically pretty critical of Dennis Allen. But I have to say, I want to give him mad props for addressing this situation head on, not beating around the bush, not trying to deflect and be like, oh, well, it's preseason, we're working things out. No, he was pissed off about it. He knows that there's a lot of things that need to be figured out. And at the end of the day, a win is a win is a win. But I don't necessarily think that penalties make it a nice win. And you're going to have a lot of those wins turn into losses if you don't clean the penalties up. So that's why I want to say the quote is nice, but the execution is going to be what makes a difference. If you don't get the execution together, it doesn't even matter. So if you want to get the Saints to clean up their penalties, join me in the comment section by typing clean, because I bet you are tired at home on all of these penalties, because I know I'm freaking tired of it. So type clean in the comment section. And if you like to be like me, a little bit of a degenerate, and you like to throw some money down on your favorite sports teams, Chat Sports has an awesome partner at our sportsbook partner with BetUS. You can get started at chatsports.com/bet. Use promo code CHAT125 for a 125% deposit bonus, meaning you throw in $100, they give you $125, so you got $225 of cheddar to throw down on whatever you like. And in terms of the betting odds for the New Orleans Saints, minus 3.5 point favorites. The Texans, again, there's going to be a 38-point over-under set. So I personally made a lot of money on that Sean O'Malley fight. Shout out Sugar Sean. I'm also planning on making a lot of money on this game. So join me, chatsports.com/bet, promo code CHAT125. All right, so I want to talk about potentially signing another offensive lineman. And credit to John Sigler over at Saints Wire. He is a great guy who I think brought a really good point up here. One free agent I'd like to see the Saints connected to is Jason Peters. He's a highly experienced offensive lineman veteran who could be a great resource for Trevor Penning. He played a part-time role for Dallas last year on a minimum salary. And 6 Saints backups on the offensive line yielded 8 penalties yesterday. And in terms of those penalties, here's the breakdown of it. Storm Norton, 2 penalties for 15 yards. Lewis Kidd, 2 penalties for 15 yards. Max Garcia, 1 penalty, but it was declined. Tommy Kramer, he had 1 penalty for 10 yards as well. Alex Filstrom, he at the center had a penalty for 10 yards. Chuck Falaga, right guard, 1 penalty for 5 yards, for a grand total of 8 penalties for 55 yards. Offensive line, that is unexcusable. Games are won and lost in the trenches, and that's why bringing in a guy like Jason Peters might make some sense. When you take a look at the numbers for Peters, the PFF nerds, they threw all this information together. 235 snaps last year for Dallas. He had an overall grade of 70.3, pass blocking grade of 60.5, and a run blocking grade of 71.8. And look at that right there. A big old goose egg in terms of penalties. He also only had 1 sack allowed and 11 total pressures. I get it. Maybe that's a high number, but I personally think that when you have a player who's a veteran who can bring in a lot of experience, and just like John Sigler said, be a great resource, I think it makes some sense. And so I want to say credit to John, because I never would have thought about this connection right here. And not to mention, Peters would be a really good depth piece in case of injuries. You have a lot of offensive linemen last year who got banged up. You already have some offensive linemen who are dealing with injuries this preseason and in training camp. So bringing in a player like Peters would make a lot of sense to me. And I think that the Saints should go and explore it. I think that the Saints should go and add some depth, and not just, bodies for camp. I'm talking about quality veterans who've played a lot of football. Peters has been to multiple Pro Bowls. Like, this is not a guy who's just some bum who doesn't do well. So let me know. Would you sign Jason Peters? Type S for sign, type P for pass. Let me know in the comment section. And one more friendly reminder, Saints fans, don't forget to subscribe and lock us in so that way you can get all of your Saints news, rumors, and updates. I'm a diehard Saints fan. I've been bleeding black and gold since the day I was born, and I will continue to bleed black and gold until I take my last breath on earth. So I encourage you to subscribe. Saints content by Saints fans for Saints fans. And as always, y'all stay golden. We'll catch you next time.